Joining me now is documentary filmmaker and journalist Ami Horowitz. Ami, let's have a look at your possible new mayor in New York City, Zohran Mamdani. Here he is talking about growing up in a third world country while eating a rice dish with his bare hands.
So the third holy grail of taboos in American politics, you have socialism, you have Islam, and then you have Palestine. And you are really going for the trifecta.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Tell me, why is Palestine a part of your politics?
When you grow up as someone, especially in the third world, you have a very different understanding of the Palestinian struggle.
Ami, can you explain to my audience just how impoverished Zohran's upbringing was, how his parents struggled? Tell me a little bit about his history and how he came to be this socialist.
Let me tell you about the woes, the troubled upbringing, the rough streets that he grew up on. First of all, it reminds me of AOC, who cosplayed as a poor person for years. We all knew she grew up in a very solidly middle to upper class neighborhood in the quote-unquote Bronx. Actually, it was Yorkville, which is not the Bronx. Zohran Mamdani needs to pretend to be working class. He actually grew up the scion of a very successful anti-American filmmaker and equally anti-American Columbia professor. Yeah, those are the tough streets he grew up on. But I get why he's doing this. Rita, he needs to. Look, in the election, he absolutely crushed the luxury belief voters, right? He dominated the white affluent voters. He won Williamsburg and Greenwich Village and Tribeca. But you know what he didn't win? He didn't win the Bronx. He didn't win Washington Heights. He lost the black vote. He lost the Hispanic vote. This is why he's cosplaying as working class. He's trying to connect, but he can't because these people cannot afford, the working class cannot afford to live in his fantasy world of his own making. They know exactly what the costs are of defunding the police, more than the people in my Upper West Side neighborhood, right? The people in the Bronx understand, or the poor parts of Brooklyn get what it's like when you don't have police on the streets. They cannot afford to live in his cosplay socialist communist world, okay? You know what? When you look at the final tallies, what happened, the symmetry is beautiful. He won the upper class vote by 12%. He lost the working class vote by 12%. That says it all. That's why he's got to pretend to be some working class person.
But far from the Democrats being worried about the influence of these hard left radicals on their party, we've got more and more of them wanting to emulate Mamdani's methods. Let's have a listen to Democrat Senator Chris Murphy on MSNBC.
He was proposing really big, sometimes radical ideas to take power from folks who have way too much of it, like the big realty companies that are jacking up rents in New York City and transferring it to regular people. He did have a laser-like focus on cost of living, on shifting power to people who don't have enough of it. And I think if the Democratic Party, writ large, spent as much time or as big a percentage of our communications time talking about the cost of living as Mamdani did in New York, we'd probably win a lot more elections.
Ami, they'd win a lot more elections. Do you agree with that assessment?
No. I mean, how many times do I have to repeat myself? Rita, look, I mean, have they learned nothing from the election? Like, I mean, unless I'm GAD, it gives me business, right? It gives me the ability to come on your show and talk about this. So I hope they continue down this road. Look, they've learned nothing from the elections. That's the answer. They're going to continue to lose elections. I mean, the numbers are stark, okay? 50 out of 50 states moved toward Trump in the last election. Not 45, not 40, 50, including Washington, D.C., okay, trended toward Trump. They voted for Trump more in 2024 than in 2020 in 90% of all 3,000 counties in the U.S. I don't know what else you have to look at other than that, okay, because they're moving to the left. Look, the Progressive Institute did a poll recently, and it showed that 68% of working class voters, right? See my comments from this last, I don't have to say it. See my comments from the last thing I just said. 68% of working class voters said the Democratic Party is losing them because they are moving too hard to the left. They lost because they eroded their, forget about the swing voters and the independents, which they lost significantly. Their own base was eroded, okay? The black and Hispanic vote, they lost a significant percentage of them because of this leftward movement. I don't understand how they don't see that, unless they think they can win every election on the electoral might of white single women, right? What I call the Yenta class. Unless they think they can win every election on that, they're going to lose. And need I remind you, this is not a new trend, Rita. Bernie Sanders won the first 3 primaries in 2020. The only reason why he didn't sweep toward the Democratic nomination was because Jim Clyburn, the black congressman from South Carolina, saved Biden's butt when he said we need to move away from Bernie Sanders, and that's why Bernie wasn't the nominee. Otherwise, he would have been. This is not a new trend. They are going to continue to lose elections.
Now, former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama have joined Bono from U2 to criticise Donald Trump's cuts to US AID. Ami, I get the feeling this intervention is just going to make these cuts more popular.
Yeah, okay. First of all, President Bush, with all due respect, when you're on the stage and touting what Bono and Obama are saying, you're on the wrong side of the issue. I'm sorry, okay? Look, USID was cut significantly by President Trump for this particular reason. When Doge did a accounting of what the money they were spending on. Let me read you a list. I don't want to miss anything on what USAID spent money on, okay? They spent $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbian workplaces. They spent $70,000 for a DEI musical in Iceland. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I'm not making this up. This is real. This is real stuff I'm reading. $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala. And by the way, Rita, that's just the funny stuff that we're laughing on. But there's some serious stuff. For example, we were funding nonprofits that were funding terrorist organizations and Al-Qaeda, okay? We were funding organizations that kept the poppy seed alive in Afghanistan, giving and supporting the Taliban. This is the situation that we find. And by the way, it is so disingenuous for them to say, yeah, but look at all the good stuff that you've all cut out. That's baloney. That's BS, okay? That is fake news. USAID was absorbed into the State Department. The State Department is still spending money on the important stuff. It's cutting out this crap I just said, okay? So it is spending money on things that we need to spend money on, but now it's not these unelected officials who are there forever, who have no accountability to the U.S. taxpayer, and now they do. That's the situation, Rita.
Well, it was such an eye-opener, having an understanding where this money has come from for these activist movements. It never was organic. It was never grassroots. It was these activists who were using taxpayer funds to push their own political barrows, and the taxpayer was completely in the dark about it. So I think it's one of the great things that has come from Trump's second term. Now, before you go, there's some angst at CNN. The New York Post is reporting that many are unhappy with anchor Caitlin Collins because she's purchased a very expensive Nantucket vacation home at a time when her colleagues are being sacked. They've got all sorts of staff cuts and other belt tightening measures happening at the struggling network. Should she be allowed to just enjoy her beach house without this angst? She works hard.
Good for Caitlin Collins, okay? Good for her. Let her buy all the beach houses, okay? I don't understand what the problem is here. Do better. I think at the bottom line, yes, there are massive cuts happening at CNN. Why? Because CNN isn't pulling in ratings, okay? There's beach houses all the live long day at Fox News because they've got ratings. The CNN people are getting cuts because they can't pull in the money. Sorry, guys. If you can't do the work, you ain't getting the beach houses. Okay, I don't know what else to say.
I think you nailed it right there, Ami Horowitz. Thanks for your time tonight.